Kyle, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I was on a bus with Brad Thor 2 weeks ago, and we were at Guy Benson's wedding, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about talking to Kyle Mills. What do you think? And Brad Thor, along with Daniel Silva, Alex Berenson, and C.J. Boxer, one of our regulars here, said, Kyle Mills is great. He's terrific, and you're killing yourself if you're not reading his Vince Flynn books. I guess you've known Brad for a while.
Yeah, I've known Brad since before his first book came out. It's been quite a while. It's been fun to watch him kind of skyrocket to the top of the business.
Well, now you're in that seat, and I got to ask you two questions. The first one is, when you take over a franchise for someone who's as beloved as Vince Flynn, and when you take over a character as vivid as Mitch Rapp, what is the most difficult of the many challenges that go with that terrain?
For me, a lot of it was just familiarizing myself with the entire universe and all the characters. Vince had been writing for a long time, and there are a lot of details. I mean, going back all the way from, when Mitch was in college. So, his fans are, incredibly devoted, and any little mistake you make, let me tell you, they point it out.
I'll bet you they do. You brought back Stan Hurley pretty late in the book. It was pretty late in the book when Stan Hurley showed up, but you couldn't get through. Irene Kennedy, I expected. I didn't know if you would dip back that far, but you've just bought into the legend of Mitch Rapp completely.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really fun to bring back old characters. Some of, one of Mitch's old girlfriends came back in Enemy of the State, and because I'd always wondered what happened to her. So that's kind of one of the fun things about having taken over is all these characters, I think, they kind of disappeared a while back. What have they been doing? I can explore that.
Now, you wrote The Survivor, Pursuit of Honor, The Last Man. I think this is your fourth, or is it your fifth Vince Flynn book?
This is my fifth, the one that's just about to come out, Lethal Agent.
Yeah, well, it is a terrific read, by the way. I read it on the plane on Saturday, finished it yesterday. Couldn't put it down, and Lethal Agent is everything I expected from a well-done Mitch Rapp book. And I am curious about your research habits. I knew Vince pretty well. I was in the studio the day he got his bad news. And so how do you research, and do you all do it the same way? Because you've got Somalia and Yemen front and center in this book. Not exactly familiar places for the average American thriller writer.
No, usually I go to places, the places I write about, but I decided to skip Somalia and Yemen, I think for obvious reasons. It's a lot easier now. I have my father was the FBI agent and the director of Interpol, so I have a lot of friends in the intelligence community that can help me out. And, also it's much easier with the Internet now. I mean, I remember when I wrote my first book before the Internet, it was about the drug war and having to call the DEA and get all these big DEA documents and pour through them. But it's a little easier to get your questions answered now.
You have a pretty interesting presidential race in the background of Lethal Agent. And in that, you write at one point, what the American people want, what they thirst for is to hurt the people they hate. They don't want a politician droning on about unemployment. They want a general. They want to blindly follow someone who can provide them an enemy and lead them to victory against that enemy, someone who can give their lives purpose. The bad presidential candidate says. She leaned back against her desk and glared down at him. If you spend your time and my money finding out ways to help people, we're going to lose this election. But if you can find me ways to inflict damage, we're going to run away with it. How much of that is useful to the plot? How much of that is Kyle Mills?
Well, I think what I was going for with Lethal Agent was to write a classic Vince Flynn thriller. With Red War, I had departed on that a little bit, and I wanted to throw a new twist into the series. And Lethal Agent, I thought, this is going to be straight up classic. And one of the real classic elements to these books is the really villainous politician. And it's not something I've explored in the books that I've written as much as Vince did. And that's why I put it in there. Though, it's kind of a difficult time to write a very political character because, people think you're attacking one side or the other. And so my hope was with this one to to explore universal themes like that one. That's not a particularly partisan issue. It's just an issue that the United States has with, a lot of rancor in our political process.
You also explore biological weapons. And Kyle, my brother's retired now, was for 45 years a PhD toxicologist with one of the big pharma people. And he always used to say, you're worried about the wrong thing. Don't worry about chemical weapons. Don't worry about nuclear weapons. Worry about bioweapons. Anyone can bring them in, and there's no stopping them. And he would always specifically reference the Spanish flu, as you do. Tell us how your attention turned there, and then remind people of the Spanish flu.
Well, so the Spanish flu is, everybody thinks of, the big scary diseases like Ebola or the plague, but the flu kills a lot of people. And the Spanish flu, this was at the end of World War I, killed an incredible number of people. It was a pandemic that was sort of unprecedented. And it's kind of, I think humanity has a way of forgetting the dangers that they know. Everybody's afraid of sharks, but nobody's afraid of drunk drivers. But you're going to get killed. It's probably going to be a drunk driver, not a shark. And that's the way the flu's become. So that's what I wanted to explore with this book, is not something super elaborate because, like you were just saying, it's not necessary. It's fairly easy to get your hold of a biological weapon, and it's fairly easy to transport it. So that's what I wanted to do, create a low-tech solution to biological weapons, and that could wipe out, a significant portion of the world's population.
Kyle Mills, congratulations on Lethal Agent. Lethal Agent in bookstores everywhere now. You can get it on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. Anywhere you buy books, you can get the brand new Vince Flynn novel, Lethal Agent, written by Kyle Mills. Kyle, look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
The conversation will continue with Kyle Mills next week. I